Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity. For now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.
Folks, Black Start Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, today's Tuesday, October 28, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We are live at the George R. Brown Convention Center here in Houston, where Afrotech is holding their annual conference. We're broadcasting here for the next 2 days, talking about all sorts of things, tech as it relates to African Americans. Now, on today's show, Republicans are always trying to steal elections. In Maine, Republicans literally want to get rid of the voting from home. Seriously, most people in Maine are seniors. Folks there are fighting back. Also on today's show, why the right wing losing their mind, going crazy because of historically accurate comments made by the dad of Zohran Mamdani. Dr. Gerald Horn from the University of Houston will join us to talk about this very issue. Also on today's show, today marks day 28 of the government shutdown. Another vote in the Senate. Democrats do not give in on the issue of health care. Also, a historic moment is unfolding. the first African-American, first woman to lead the United States Steelworkers, Roxanne Brown, will join us right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, Jay Jones is in a tight race to be the next Attorney General of Virginia. He'll join us on the show as well. Plus, in our Marketplace segment, we feature a black-owned brand called E. Marie, redefining comfort with ultra-soft blankets and hoodies. It's a lot to talk about. It's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, we are here live at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, where Afrotech is taking place. Thousands of people have registered for the conference, talking about all things tech. Over the next couple of days, we'll be broadcasting from here, bringing to you a number of experts talking about where African Americans should be thinking and moving in 2025 and beyond when it comes to technology. And so, glad to be here and partnering with Afrotech to actually make this happen. Let's talk about what's happening in the world of politics. Republicans continue their dastardly ways of trying to steal elections. In Maine, they are trying to get rid of absentee voting. Guess what? 61% of the people in Maine are elderly. So here's what they've decided to do. It's a question called Question 1, and they put together some 25 changes in the very issue. It includes requiring photo ID for everyone voting, eliminating Maine's ongoing popular absentee ballot list, banning ballot requests by phone, cutting 2 key absentee ballot request days, limiting ballot drop boxes to 1 per town, and banning towns from providing prepaid postage for returning ballots. Again, Maine has one of the oldest populations in the country. As I said, 61% of seniors used mail voting in the last federal election, making Question 1 a direct threat to their right to vote. I was reading one story, and it literally said that senior citizen centers said, wow, we never knew we were going to actually become voting agents, and that's what they're actually doing. My panel, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA, joins us from Washington, D.C. Dr. Larry J. Walker, associate professor, University of Central Florida, from Orlando. Jesse Hamilton McCoy, director, Duke Civil Justice Clinic out of Durham, North Carolina. Jesse, I'll start with you. We've seen this over and over and over again. This is what Republicans do. And they have been on record as saying it. When they restrict the right to vote, they win. So for them, they publicly said, if you put photo ID in there, if you get rid of ballot drop boxes, if you shave days off when it comes to early voting, if you stop absentee ballot voting, they believe that they can win. They also are on the record as saying, when you expand access to the ballot, then they lose. So it's real clear. So when people run around talking about, oh, this is the right country, this is what happens when they restrict access to the ballot box.
And it's very interesting that this is happening in Maine. You went through some of the statistics about the percentage of the population that are elderly. I can only assume that a certain percentage of that population is also disabled. So we know that there are going to be people whose voices will not be able to be heard if these measures are put in place. And it seems like this has been more of a national campaign in the quest to, if anything, conserve or save power that they've already got, because they know that people are not largely happy with the results of where government has been going.
Yeah, I mean, and so what you see is when they are, and what they do is they try to muddy the waters here, Mustafa. And so by putting all of these things in one amendment, they hope to confuse people. But folks in Maine are fighting back.
Yeah, and it's good to see folks in Maine actually doing that. You know, this is real. There's intentionality exactly in what these folks are doing. It is about the erasure of votes. It is about making sure that those who might vote for more progressive policies, for policies that actually embrace humanity, have that opportunity. And they also know, as you stated, you know, that if folks have to go out to the polls, then there's less likely to actually vote. So they understand the game. They are utilizing every tactic that they can because their policies don't resonate with the majority of Americans across our country. So they have to resort to these types of sets of actions.
And we've seen this thing before where Republicans changed laws in Maine. And guess what, Larry? The voters came back in the next cycle and changed the law right back. And so this is not what folks in Maine are declaring for. This is Republicans saying if we can restrict access to the ballot, then we have a better chance of winning the 2026 midterms.
Absolutely, Roland. And let's be clear, this is not about democracy. This is about power. And you're right, the tricks that they're trying in Maine in terms of using confusing language, whether it's confusing the elderly or new voters, it's nothing new. The same tactics they've used in states throughout the United States, really, they've used the same tactics for years. But it's great. You said it's really great that those individual voters in Maine understand what's happening, and like you said, are pushing back. Roland, the other point I want to make is, racism is expensive. And the point I want to make is that there's a connection between all the attacks against the Voting Rights Act and what predominantly white voters are experiencing in Maine. When you ignore what's happened to minoritized groups, then eventually it filters its way down and impacts those from white communities. So I'm glad the voters are going to stand steadfast. Hopefully they'll reject this measure. And also we have to have a larger conversation about protecting the voting rights of all people.
Jesse, here's a perfect example. In Maine, they've had same-day voter registration. That's right there. It's been there. Now, in 2011, the Republican-controlled legislature voted to repeal that law, and the citizens said, oh, hell no. What they then did was they used what is called a people's veto to restore that. And so that's a perfect example of what happens when the people stand up. But this is what Republicans wanted to do. They wanted to get rid of same-day voter registration.
Absolutely. And, I can only imagine that with all these things coming to a head around the same time, they know that the people are going to be active participants in their democracy. They know that the people want something vastly different than what the Republican agenda is. And so the only way that they know to silence people's votes, or at least to create impediments that inhibit people's ability to be able to vote and express that opinion, is by these games that they're doing. And we're seeing it, especially in Maine, but not just in Maine. We're seeing this around the nation where districts are getting gerrymandered so that there are fewer and fewer Black representatives who could be elected to go to a space. So this is part of a national agenda to conserve the power within the Republican Party.
And this is one of the reasons why, Mustafa, again, folks who believe in the right to vote have to understand they are going to try to use every trick available, especially in places where they control the legislature and they have the governor's mansion. Even though you have a Democrat who's the Governor Janet Mills there in Maine, but more of this is going to happen. We need to be prepared for this. This is why we also tell people, when you do not vote, you make it easy for them to do these things.
Yeah. And that message to everybody who sits on the couch, everybody who says there's no real reason for me to vote because nothing ever changes. Things change. And that's why you have to get engaged, because if you don't push back against these types of things, then they continue to ingrain these types of actions to limit the opportunities that you have. So everybody has to get engaged, but we also have to be authentic partners in this process. So no matter if you're in Georgia or if you're in Maine or if you're in Illinois or a number of locations across the country, this is why folks have to come together. And we have to make sure that we have a front that is stopping these types of actions, but that we're also standing up and supporting each other. So this is the moment. for you to make a decision. If you want to have a democracy that works for everyone, if you want to have the ability to actually go out and cast the vote for whomever you find most valuable, because if you don't get engaged, those opportunities are fading away every time they do one of these actions.
And here's the thing here, Larry. They've been very clear. Paul Weyrich, who died several years ago, he was a founder of the Heritage Foundation. He was one of the founders of the Moral Majority. He gave this speech, 1981, 4 hours from here in Dallas, where he specifically said, we don't want everyone voting. Listen.
No.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Come on. Right there, Larry. He makes it clear. They do not want everyone to vote, and that has been their strategy since 1980 when the moral majority came to fruition nationally.
Yeah, so, that's that kind of the beginning of that neoconservative movement. And you're right, Roland. I mean, he made it explicitly clear. And look, we know these tactics are really Republican old school tactics in terms of limiting the pool of individuals who can vote, limiting how they vote, and what time they vote, what days of the week, et cetera, to ensure they can consolidate power and essentially create a white Christian nationalist nation. And so it's really important for all groups of individuals to fight back on that. Obviously, we're talking about Maine right now, but this is, once again, this is an ongoing fight that we dealt with for decades. But you see there where the seeds of this began, and since then we got the Gingrich Revolution, and now this new wave of republicanism that's led us to where we are today.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. Lots to talk about. Jay Jones, running for Attorney General in Virginia, will join us right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Also, Dr. Gerald Horne will share some historical facts that the GOP does not like when it comes to racism, Nazis, Jim Crow, and Hitler. It's a lot we're going to be breaking down. We're broadcasting live from the George R. Brown Convention Center here in Houston, where Afrotech Conference is taking place. We'll be here for the rest of the week. Folks, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Josh Cole became a pastor and delegate to serve his community. That's why Josh is fighting to lower costs for families hurting from inflation and make sure we can all afford quality health care. But Sean Steinway has embraced his MAGA backers who support Trump's mass firing of federal workers and the MAGA plan to ban abortion with no exceptions. We deserve better than Sean Steinway.
I'm Josh Cole, candidate for delegate, and I sponsored this ad.
In the military, I gave orders, and they went a lot further than they do around here. If there's one thing I've learned as a mom and foster parent of more kids than I can count, investing in their future isn't a choice. In Richmond, I'll fight for Stafford's fair share for our schools. Smaller class sizes, better teacher pay, and more vocational training.
I'm Stacey Carroll, and I'll fight to get our kids' future in order.
Nicole Cole knows the cornerstone of a successful life starts here. Virginia Public Schools gave Nicole an excellent education. They helped her become a small business owner, family financial planner, mother, and community leader. Now, after 4 years on the Spotsylvania School Board, Nicole is running for delegate to meet the needs of all students. As our delegate, Nicole will fully fund our schools, raise teacher salaries, and help graduating students stay in our communities. Nicole Cole for delegate. For us, for our future.
Hello, I'm Paula J. Parker, truly proud on the Proud Family.
I am Tommy Davidson. I play Oscar on Proud Family, Louder and Proud.
Hi, I'm Jo Marie Payton, voice of Sugar Mama on Disney's Louder and Prouder, Disney Plus. And I'm with Roland Martin on Unfiltered.
All right, folks, we are back. We are live. Yeah, we live, bro. We live. We're live here on Roland Martin Unfiltered from the George R. Brown Convention Center here for the Afrotech Conference. Day 28 of the Donald Trump MAGA federal government shutdown. 13th time the United States Senate did not move forward with approving a continuing resolution to keep the government funded. What we're seeing, Democratic leaders from 25 states in D.C., they're suing the Trump administration to stop food stamp benefits from being cut off. The USDA has announced it will not tap into a $6 billion backup fund, putting SNAP benefits for 42 million people at risk for the first time in 60 years. The lawsuit, led by attorneys general from Massachusetts, California, Arizona, and Minnesota, argues the USDA is legally required to keep SNAP running and calls the plan suspension arbitrary and capricious. In California, about 5.5 million people are CalFresh recipients. They could lose funding for their EBT cards. In November, Governor Gavin Newsom says the lawsuit aims to force the Trump administration to do right by the American people.
These guys need to stop the BS in Washington, D.C. They're sitting there in their prayer breakfasts. I mean, maybe they got an edited version of Donald Trump's Bible, and they edited all of that out. I mean, enough of this. Cruelty is the policy. That's what this is about. It's intentional cruelty, intentionally creating anxiety for millions and millions of people, 5.5 million here in our home state. So, again, our state of mind is pretty clear. We're going to win this lawsuit.
All right, folks, let's go back to our panel. Mustafa Santiago Ali, also joined us by Larry Walker, Jesse Hamilton McCoy. Listen, Mustafa, we see what's going on here. Republicans, they don't give a damn about poor people. They don't give a damn about poor white people, poor white conservative people. This is about appealing to their base, pure and simple. That's what their strategy is.
That might be what their strategy is, but it is a flawed strategy. You know, we've got, 40 million folks who benefit from being able to have SNAP. We know that about 2/3 of those are children. So you're sending a very clear message about, the soul of your party, really, because it is soulless. If you're allowing children to actually starve, if you're allowing the most vulnerable to not have the nutrition that they need to be able to just function. So I hope folks will actually unpack this, because whether you're from Appalachia or you're from the breadbasket in our country or you come from these urban centers, everyone will be impacted. And that's why you have to raise your voice. You have to let folks know what your set of expectations are. I've never met, in the thousands and thousands of places that I've been across this country, anyone who says that children should starve. Anyone that says that in the richest nation on the planet, that folks should not have the food that they need to be able to survive. So that's literally what we're dealing with. We don't have to wrap it up in pretty bows and that type of thing. We are making a decision between who lives and who dies in this country.
And that's why, Larry, these people, they are not pro-life. They don't care if folks starve. They don't care if they don't die. And that's just simply their state of mind. They do not care.
Yeah, they're more concerned about the top 1%. We saw that from the tax cut they got not too long ago. And Roland, I'm glad we're talking about this on your show, and it's getting more press. I don't think Americans have any idea how devastating this will become on November 1st in terms of the millions of individuals, like we talk about, predominantly children, who eat because of SNAP and their various other programs. And listen, Roland, we escaped $20 billion to Argentina. And we could spend far less in terms of making sure, SNAP benefits, people get their SNAP benefits and they can feed their children. But this is really unconscionable, and this is certainly not consistent with the kind of values we talk about, you read about in the Bible, and many of us sat in pews on Sunday. So the idea that doing this is legal, it makes no sense, considering we know USDA posted on their own, on their policies and procedures that they were supposed to responsible for continuing the fund SNAP benefits even during the shutdown.
Jesse, I want to show you this tweet by this guy, Mike Davis. Mike Davis is a former chief counsel for nominations for the Senate Judiciary Committee. He was a law clerk for Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. He is a big-time right-winger. This is a tweet that he sent out a few days ago. He said, "We should only help people who can't help themselves. It's outrageous that 40 million people get food stamps. Get off your fat ghetto asses. Get a job. Stop reproducing. Change your shitty culture. Stop giving food stamps to immigrants. We don't want you here if you won't work." That right there, that sums up today's Republican Party as to how they feel about people who are on food stamps.
And I think another thing that he is trying to do is he is trying to paint the narrative of who is actually receiving these benefits. And that narrative isn't consistent with what the data has shown. So we know that there are places where people are receiving benefits, but it may not necessarily be called SNAP, just like it may not necessarily be called Medicaid, right? We know that there are places where people who do not look like you or I are receiving these benefits, but yet his tweet gives off this connotation that somehow it's the other that is taking from them. It is Black people. It is people who are immigrants. It is people who are Latino. It's taking away. And I think the problem that we're getting ready to see in mass scale is that folks don't even know that they're going to be impacted by this because they feel like they're not the complexion for which this is going to devastate. I also believe that in many regards, a lot of people voted for this, right? This is what they voted for. They wanted to have a Trump administration 2.0. He was clear about his stance with, Project 2025. Even though he tried to distance himself, we knew what it was. This is clear. And so this was to be expected. I do find it disturbing that the Food and Drug Administration is deciding to hold out money that it already has in a reserve to not make sure that the program is funded. But again, I think the connotations based on exactly what he said in that tweet determine who they think are going to suffer from these decisions.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're dealing with, and people just simply have to understand. Cruelty is the point, as Adam Sir wrote regarding the Supreme Court and these MAGA folks. Cruelty is the point. That is exactly what their strategy is. They do not care, and that's what they think. And you're right. There are more people who are on food stamps who are white than Black or Latino, but they know what media has done. It has created the perception over the last few decades, Mustafa, that when it comes to food stamps, it's Black people. When they say fat ghetto asses, they're not talking about that obese white woman in rural America. They are talking about Black people.
Well, he needs to actually come with me on a tour, and I will take you throughout Appalachia. I'll take you through Western Pennsylvania and West Virginia and Southern Ohio and Eastern or Western Tennessee and Kentucky, and you will actually see the folks who are being the recipients of these benefits because we don't want them to starve either. We also got to understand in this moment, that this is also the working poor. So they make it sound like folks are sitting on their behinds. No, your whack policies have actually created a dynamic where people can't make enough money to survive. They can't make enough money to actually put food on the table for their families. So they have to have the federal government, and rightly so, because their tax dollars are there to be able to help to supplement what's going on. The other part that he doesn't talk about is the fact that people are about to lose their health insurance, or it's about to become so expensive that if your body is worn down because you don't have the nutrition that you need, now you can't even go to see a doctor for them to be able to help you along your journey as well. So their policies have compounding effects. Their policies are whack. Their policies are not helpful on the economic side of the equation because we understand with SNAP benefits, there's also an economic component. There are studies that have shown that it helps. For every dollar you invest, you get $1.25 or $1.50 back into the to the economic drivers in our country. So we need to just be very clear and don't allow these folks to continue this misinformation and disinformation and false narratives about who is the recipient or how those benefits actually help our country to be better.
Absolutely. And so we'll be talking more about this here. Again, we are approaching that critical day, November 1st, where you're going to see a lot of this stuff change, and we'll see what happens. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. A woman has never led the United States Steelworkers That's going to change come March. We'll talk to her next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Folks, be sure to support the work that we do. We are here at the George R. Brown Convention Center at the Afrotech Conference. And, of course, we'll be here for the next couple of days. Your support for this show allows for us to be able to travel all across the country, covering events, covering stories, covering things that nobody else is covering. So if you want to support our work, please do me a favor. Do this here. Go to, if you want to use Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see right here the QR code in the left-hand corner. Use that QR code for Cash App, credit cards as well. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo's RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money orders. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 7-0196. Back in a moment.
Afrotech, it's a lot of beauty, a lot of brilliance, a lot of intellect, a lot of innovation.
Companies that are most diverse are more profitable.
We're getting culture, we're getting community, we're getting the best of the best.
And not only are we here to greet each other, but we're here to network and to elevate each other.
Everybody from all the major tech companies here, and that means that now everybody's in the same domain.
This is the premier event every year. This is really where we could take off. You can go fast by yourself, but we go farther together.
This is where you're supposed to be.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Godfrey, the funniest dude on the planet. And you're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Folks, we're here at the George R. Brown Convention Center for Afrotech, broadcasting live for the next couple of days here. Looking forward to being here. All right, folks, for the first time in history, come March, a woman will lead the United States Steelworkers. Roxanne Brown will be sworn in as president. She currently serves as the union's international vice president at large, North America. She has long advocated for every employee. And, of course, the USW represents some 850,000 workers across America. Roxanne joins us right now. I'm glad to have you here on the show, Roxanne. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Roland. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me on tonight.
So for folks who don't understand how critical this is, I mean, let's just be honest. When you look at the history of steel workers, it's always been, presented as these big, burly men, working dirt all over their face with a lunch pail. So this idea that women are also steel workers could be a surprise to some people.
That's right. It's a new day at the Steelworkers Union. And I think it's really important, actually, to the point that you just made, Roland, that we actually break down that narrative of what a steelworker looks like. I'm a steelworker. I'm a Black woman immigrant from Jamaica who is a proud member and leader of the Steelworkers Union. And it's not just me. There are tens of thousands of steelworkers who look like me, and thousands that share my background. So I'm just proud of our union. Proud that we're stepping into this moment where we break down the stereotype of what a steelworker looks like and where a steelworker works.
How long have you been a steelworker, and how the heck did that happen? When did you decide to say, this is what I want to do?
I'm going to age myself. I'm about almost 30 years with the Steelworkers. Next year will be my 27th year. And I started when I was just a babe. I was 19 years old, and I started in our Washington, D.C. office, our legislative and policy office in Washington, D.C. And I come from a labor family. My mom was in the nurses union. My aunt was a member of AFSCME, CSCA in New York. And so I come from a proud labor family, but I was privileged to be introduced to the Steelworkers at just a young age of 19. And the rest, as they say, is history.
One of the things that we are seeing, obviously, we have seen the impact of foreign steel in this country. That was a huge merger that was very contentious very recently as well. And so give folk an understanding of this reality of how, and because people keep forgetting, people can yell America first all they want to, but we're operating in a global economy. And we're dealing now with serious competition. And so talk about what that impact has on U.S. steelworkers when you're talking about folks saying, hey, I can get cheaper steel elsewhere.
All right. I appreciate that question, Roland. You know, every industrialized nation, every powerful nation needs to have a strong domestic industry, period. But certainly a strong domestic steel industry. And our union has fought for over 4 decades to ensure the strength of the domestic steel industry. We are not unopposed to competition. You know, we need to have competition at the global level, but we like fair rules in the global marketplace. And so what we have fought for over 4 decades is against unfair trade. We've and our members have dealt with unfair imports that have devastated, quite literally, the domestic steel industry and devastated communities all across this country. So our union has leaned into policies, trade policies that level the playing field, that allow steel companies to compete in the global marketplace, that allow our members to have their jobs now and into the future. And that allows there to actually be a domestic steel industry, not just in 2025, but well into the future. These are good family-sustaining jobs that have quite literally raised families for you know, almost 100 years in this country, and we want them to continue into the future. You referenced Nippon. I think that's what you're referring to is the Nippon U.S. Steel.
Yes.
You know, the Nippon's acquisition of U.S. Steel. Our union was not supportive of that acquisition because Nippon, unfortunately, is one of those companies that has engaged in unfair trade when it comes to their steel products coming into the United States, that has led to impacts on U.S. jobs. So we want companies that are committed to U.S. jobs, that are committed to U.S. industry, that are committed to having strong industry going into the future. And we did not believe that Nippon shared those values. Now they've acquired U.S. Steel. Now we go into bargaining with U.S. Steel and Nippon next year. They've made a discrete set of commitments, $11 billion into U.S. Steel facilities, and we're going to hold their feet to the fire. That is our charge going into next year.
Labor's also at a very interesting point in that you just had the most pro-labor administration, I dare say, since FDR. Yes. And what you also are dealing with, you're dealing with, well, first of all, I'm going to deal with that issue before I talk about the next issue, the African-American influence with these unions. But how do you all explain to people, how do you navigate that? Because you have Donald Trump on the one hand, who loves talking about he cares for workers. There were a lot of steel workers who were standing behind him at rallies. There were a lot of Teamsters who were standing behind him at rallies. But when it came to saving the pensions of union workers, that was Democrats. Vice President Kamala Harris broke the tie. So how do you make the point, and let's be real clear, you got to put race on the table. How do you make the point to a lot of your white steel workers that, hey, you're actually in many cases voting against your own economic interests when you're voting for anti-union people?
So let me tell you what we are doing at the Steelworkers, and what we're going to really lean into even more is focusing on the policy and not the politics. What we like to say is we don't care if you have a R, a D, an L, and OP after your name as an elected. We will support you if you support us. You raised one of our most important issues, retirement security. You are absolutely right. That was done under the Biden administration, and Vice President Harris did pass the tie-breaking vote. Retirement security and health care are the number 1 and 2 issues that working people care about in this country. we're educating our members to make sure that they understand when it comes to the issues that they most care about: healthcare, retirement security, collective bargaining, safety and health, that they have to stand with those who stand with us. And we're making them pay attention to what is happening right now. I can spend this entire call with you right now, Roland, and go through OSHA and the $50 billion that's been cut at OSHA and the 10,000 less inspections that means for facilities all across this country. We could talk about the Chemical Safety Board and the fact that means, zeroing out the CSB means that our members who have a fatality at work or an explosion at work will not know if they can go back into that workplace in a safe way. This is the information that we're giving to our members right now. And we're showing them what is happening real time. And we're being very clear about who stands with us on these issues, under what circumstances these cuts are happening, and how we need to fight going forward. You're absolutely right. We have members who support President Trump, and some of them will remain in that place. But we are leaning in on the education that our members need to know in terms of the issues that matter most to them, so that they know that they stand with those who stand with us.
We also add an inflection point when it comes to black leadership of unions. For a long time, you get a lot of black workers didn't have black leadership. Lee Saunders, the president of American Federation of State, County Municipal Employees. You've got April Verrett, SEIU, Becky Pringle, National Education Association, Claude Cummings, CWA. You've got the leader of the American Federation of Government Employees, and a number of other unions, you coming in March. So speak to how African Americans have fought diligently, tooth and nail, to rise, to lead these unions, and in many cases, unions that were locking black folks out of leadership for a long time.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and hats off to all those leaders that you just mentioned. They're my friends and my colleagues, and I am so proud to serve in this labor movement with them. It is a new day, as I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, where working people are just throwing down, and working people want to be represented by those people who are going to have their backs. Every single one of those leaders that you raised have their members' backs. They have the backs of working people. Our members know that I have their backs as well. That is all that people want. People just want to know that you're going to fight for them, that you're going to show up for them when it most matters. Roland, going back to the pensions that you mentioned with the Butch-Lewis Act, we fought so hard to make sure that the people who earn their pensions will retire in dignity. That wasn't just the leaders that you mentioned that fought. It was the entire labor movement. And that's what working people want. They want leaders who have their backs. And so I think, in today's labor movement, we're breaking down those color lines, because it's about leadership. It's not about the color you are. It's not about the race that you are. It's about whether or not, when workers need you to stand up for them the most, that you will, and that you will show up. And so my colleagues that you mentioned, that's what they do. That's what I do every single day, that we have the privilege to do this every single day on behalf of our respective memberships.
Questions from my panel. Let's first start with Dr. Larry Walker. Larry, what's your question for Roxanne Brown?
Yeah, President Brown, congratulations. And so my question kind of connects to something Roland said. We increasingly live in a diverse society, and I'm wondering how you're, in terms of recruiting new members, steelworkers, while also dealing with the political rhetoric relating to DEI policies, right? You have that balance of a different population, and then but counter politically with some of these policies. How are you balancing that?
So I will tell you, and maybe just a quick overview of who our union is. We like to say that we're cradle to grave, right? We represent 50,000 members in healthcare. And the healthcare sector, as you all know, is pretty diverse in terms of race, but it's also pretty, heavy on women. So that's a sector that is pretty diverse in our union. And we go to grave, which is represent grave diggers and casket makers and everything in between. We have membership that literally touches every sector of the economy. And that speaks to the diversity of our union. At our core, we're a manufacturing union. And so we have kind of the traditional, white guy membership. But we touch so many different sectors that represent women and people of color. And so for us, that really helps us as a union to really push against a lot of the anti-DEI rhetoric and narrative that is unfortunately surrounding us right now, because it's again about the work, it's about equity, and it's about making sure that everyone starts from the same fair level of fairness. Everyone wants to earn a good living. Everyone wants to be able to retire in dignity. Everyone wants to be able to go to the doctor when they're sick, take their kid to the doctor when they're sick. That is the basic place that we start from as a labor union. And I think our diversity helps us to be able to lean into those issues and really shirk all of the DEI narrative that is surrounding us right now.
Mustafa.
Well, it's good to see you. Congratulations. I'm third generation union, and actually some of my family is in your union and some of the others that we've been in over the decades. I'm curious. We had the bipartisan infrastructure bill. I actually helped work on that. There were lots of opportunities for union workers that were tied to that. Do you still see a pathway forward in being able to do some of the things that help, that sort of said we would be able to move forward on over the next decade, really?
And it's great to see you, Mustafa. I really appreciate the work that you did in your previous role along these policy pieces, too. The bipartisan infrastructure law, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, those were all really once in a generation type of policies. And as a policy person, I think any policy person that you talk to will say that just one of those bills was a once in a generation piece of policy. And the fact that we got three was just incredible and unheard of, and spoke to the possibilities of the U.S. economy and the possibilities for working people and job creation and job retention. So much of it has been rolled back, particularly the Inflation Reduction Act. And it's impossible to calculate what those losses and those rollbacks will mean, not just for America's workers and American industry, but communities all across this country. It is impossible to calculate. Can we regain some of what's been lost? I hope so. During this period. I hope so during this period. But I think the collective we who are focused on a future that we all want, that we're all fighting for, have to be prepared for how we are going to hit the ground running on the other side of this period. And what plan we have, not just to regain what we lost, but to make better, to build on top of what we had for a fleeting moment with these three pieces of policies, how we are going to make an economy that's even better than those bills would have served for this economy. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. We'll see what we can get during this period, and we'll work really hard to drive. But unfortunately, I think the losses will be impossible to calculate.
Jesse.
President Brown, congratulations again on the new post. This is amazing to me, just to see someone who looks like me in a leadership position there. I am curious about, given all the things we've talked about with political issues, with economic challenges, for this upcoming year, what do you see as the biggest challenge for the United Steelworkers Union?
Well, next year is a major bargaining year for us across a lot of our major industries. From oil to aluminum to tires to pulp and paper to steel towards the late summer into the fall. So the financial uncertainty that has been created by this administration is going to make all those bargains very difficult, I think, because today is October 28th, 2025. We have no idea what the economy is going to look like in January when we start bargaining with the oil industry, much less, late summer when we start bargaining with the steel industry. So the biggest challenge for us is economic uncertainty as we go into bargaining with these major industries. Going into next year, that's our biggest challenge.
All right, then. Well, again, Roxanne, congratulations. March, you'll be installed as president. How long is the term?
4 years.
All right, then. Well, I look forward to meeting you in person, and certainly congratulations on this historic achievement.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having me on tonight.
All right, thanks a lot. Oh, wait, hold up. I did one more thing. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Uh-oh.
I saw this yesterday. And you just want to see brain dead. So Trump's Department of Labor, I don't know if you saw this, they put these graphics out on social media depicting the American worker. Control room, look at this. Do you see this?
I see it.
This is literally on the Twitter feed of the United States Department of Labor using these 1940s, 1950s images of all white people depicting the American worker.
That is the America that they want, and that is the America that they're fighting so hard to regain. That is not the America that any of us subscribe to. That is not the America that exists, and that is not the America that we are going to accept. I will tell you, before I get off of here, our union is going to fight so hard to make sure that the America that we all know that we deserve, the America that my 8-year-old daughter deserves, is the America that we are going to win back. What they're doing right now is curating an America that they have longed for, but they are not facing the America that is today in 2025. And it is America that looks like me, a Black immigrant woman. This is America today. So that's what we're fighting for, Roland. I didn't see that. Thanks for, you got me all, you got me all hyped up.
Well, I saw it, I pulled it, and I was like, wait a minute, hold up, let me bring it up. But when because Howard Bryant commented that on a tweet, and when I saw it, I sat there and said, you've got to be kidding me. But that's really what they're afraid of, because by 2039, the majority of the workers in America are going to be Black and people of color. In 2043, that's going to be the total population. So we're not going back. I keep saying white America can't have enough kids to reverse these trends. This is where we're going, and this is what's driving them crazy, that we are. That's why I wrote my book called White Fear, the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds, and that's what's going on.
Well, that is not the America we're fighting for, and I look forward to the work together, Roland. You've been in this for a while now, and you're someone that I look up to, and I look forward to the fight together to reclaim the America that we all know that we deserve.
Well, I'm going to tell you the same thing that Claude Cummings knows, and Becky and April and Lee. Anytime you want to come on the show, just let us know. We don't have meetings. We don't cast votes. I own it. So if I say let's go, let's go. And so do understand, let your staff know we don't go through all that stuff like calling 3 weeks ahead of time. If something pops up and you're like, hey, can I come on? That's easy. That's an easy call for me. So you're certainly welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I'll hold you to it.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Folks, when we come back, embattled Virginia Attorney General candidate Jay Jones will join us. He is in a tight race to become the next Attorney General. And so we're going to talk about these text messages the Republicans are slamming him about, but also how he is going to fight for voting rights if he becomes the next Attorney General for Virginia. That's up next, right here. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from George R. Brown Convention Center here in my native town of Houston. We're here for Afro Tech. Folks are all over this place. We're going to be broadcasting tomorrow, carrying several sessions live from the stage. Also doing a lot of interviews with different execs and inventors who are here at Afrotech. So we look forward to broadcasting here for the next couple of days. Again, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Back in a moment.
This week on The Other Side of Change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Next on The Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Why the America we live in today is not what the founders intended or what they outlined in the Declaration of Independence and even the Constitution. Professor and author Kermit Roosevelt will join us to talk about his book, The Nation That Never Was. How history was misinterpreted, the intent and realities of America's beginnings, and missed a much better story in the process.
So if you have to pick some group to marginalize, I think it should be the people who are against equality.
That's next on The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Carl Payne pretending to be Roland Martin. Holla!
You ain't got to wear black and gold every damn place, okay? Ooh, I'm an alpha, yay. All right, you're 58 years old. It's over.
And you are now watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Uncut, unplugged, and undamn believable.
All right, folks, we're live here in Houston, the George R. Brown Convention Center for the Afrotech Conference. Glad to have all of you here. Folks, Election Day is 1 week away. Critical races happening across the country, including a number of statewide races in Virginia. One of the hotly contested races is the Attorney General's race, pitting Jay Jones against Jason Miyares. This, of course, is a very tight race and has only gotten tighter as a result of some text messages that were released. Republicans are running commercials left and right. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of Democrats are trying to run away from Jay Jones. But the others who are standing with him, like Congressman Bobby Scott, Senator Louise Lucas, House Speaker Don Scott. Joining us right now is Jay Jones. Jay, glad to have you back on the show. Last time you were here, we had some breaking news, so unfortunately our interview got cut short. I have to ask you, those texts completely upended this race, and you're being attacked left and right. You've apologized for that. Just take us through how you've had to battle this over the last 3 weeks. You had a lead, like the other Democrats did, according to polls, that's evaporated. Just give us a sense of your thoughts on where this race is right now as a result of this controversy.
Well, look, Roland, it's great to be back with you, but let me first just say this campaign has always been bigger than me. It's about whether or not we're going to protect Virginians, or let Donald Trump and large corporations continue to raise prices and control our Commonwealth. And from the start of this campaign, we've been talking about the rising cost of living here in this Commonwealth and federal overreach that the Trump administration continues to do, which is a driving factor for voters. And so these issues are a direct result of Jason Miyares failing to stand up to Donald Trump's extremism. And we're going to use these next 7 days to make sure voters know that. This race was always going to be close. He is an incumbent. He's well-funded. The MAGA ecosystem is behind him. But we have been fighting every single day to make sure that Virginians know the choice in front of them, that the stakes could not be clearer. And that's what you're seeing in these final days. People are checking in, and they know that they don't want Donald Trump running their lives anymore and putting us in a bad spot. And as Attorney General, I can't wait to see Donald Trump in court because I'm ready to hold him accountable.
There is going to be a huge rally in Virginia featuring former President Barack Obama. Are you speaking at that rally? Are you going to be there?
Look, I'm excited that the president is coming, and we are all hands on deck here in Virginia. That's why everybody is coming down to make sure that they know that we have an election. You've had governors here. You've had senators here. I'm excited to welcome President Obama to Virginia because he knows the stakes. And like I just said, they couldn't be higher and they couldn't be more clear. And the choices are very stark. And so we have an opportunity not only to chart a new course here in Virginia, but to elect the first black attorney general in the 406-year history of this Commonwealth.
You have several things going on. Obviously, you got critical races happening around the country. Lots of television commercials, lots of radio commercials, lots of digital ads. But the reality is votes are won with boots on the ground. What does your ground game look like? How many folks do you have out there? What are the critical places that you need to turn out in big numbers, namely the place where you're actually from? How important is that? Because one of the things that I keep saying repeatedly for African Americans, and that is where we have significant votes, we've got to be hitting a minimum of 70% turnout so we are maximizing our vote.
Well, look, our coordinated campaign here in this Commonwealth is the most robust and largest that we've ever seen, supporting candidates from top to bottom. And everybody knows that we have invested millions and millions of dollars to make sure that our turnout program is the best that we've ever seen here in Virginia. And so I'm excited to see this in practice, right? We have had early vote going on since the middle of September, and it ends on Saturday, November 1st. And then we've got Election Day next Tuesday. So this is going to be a critical push for us and a huge piece of the puzzle. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. Very proud of that fact. My sons are now fifth-generation Norfolkians, and so we want to do well here. We want to do well everywhere. I think what is special about this campaign is that we have not just stuck to places that have traditionally been Democratic strongholds, but we've been able to go into the areas that are more pink and more red and try to connect with people and say, hey, look, yeah, we might disagree on some stuff, but right now the Trump administration is hurting Virginia. It's hurting every single one of us. Jason Miyares has had more than 50 opportunities to sue this administration to protect our resources, our values, and our ideals, and he can't do that. And so when you think about the federal workers who have been illegally fired earlier this year, you think about the folks who are at home right now not getting paid because of a government shutdown that is the fault of Republicans who control Washington, K-12 funding, law enforcement funding. People are going to lose Medicaid here in Virginia, 350,000 Virginians. The list goes on and on. That does unite us, and that is what continues to push us forward. And I do think that we are going to send a resounding message on Tuesday that we mean business here in Virginia, and Donald Trump will not walk over us anymore.
You know, one of the things that people have to understand that the power of state attorneys general. We actually saw that in Biden-Harris. It was Republican attorney generals that actually sued when it came to the student loan program. Earlier in the show, I talked about the lawsuit coming from Democrat attorney generals when it comes to the SNAP program. You got voting rights is an issue as well. Criminal justice, holding police accountable. There's so many things that people are now recognizing, and I dare say, really, with the Black Lives Matter movement, you're now seeing progressives who understand how important it is for these AG races. Republicans have long dominated them on strong law and order. But now people are seeing how critical a state attorney general is. I'm born and raised in Houston. We're here in Texas. We got one of the stupidest, dumbest, most criminals as an AG, Ken Paxton. And unfortunately, he has used the power of the AG's office to go after Harris County when it comes to voting and so many different things along those lines. So a state attorney general is a hugely important position.
Well, look, this is the battlefield now, right? And the lines have been drawn, and Virginia deserves an attorney general who's going to push back against this excess and chaos. And, again, I mentioned it a second ago, Jason Miyares has had more than 50 opportunities to sue this administration to protect us, and he can't do it because he's too loyal to the president. He's too weak to stand up to the president. There is a reason that Donald Trump has endorsed him on their statewide ticket and nobody else. It's because he knows that Jason Miyares will continue to let him do whatever he wants at the expense of regular Virginians. We deserve a change and we deserve better here in this Commonwealth. And it really is a wide-ranging sort of purview that attorneys general can get involved in. I mean, even today, you've seen AG step up to protect the SNAP benefits for their states. Jason has been nowhere to be found. So people who are struggling really are looking for these attorneys general for leadership. And right now in these challenging times, I know Virginia can do better. I know that people are demanding better, and that's what we will give them because we have been listening to our neighbors, our friends, our family members, our coworkers, folks from all corners of this Commonwealth who are desperate for protection from this excess and from this overreach, and who are going to attack the problems that we have here head on, lowering costs, keeping our communities safe, making sure that we protect our children, and on down the line, as opposed to doing what one person in Washington wants you to do. Again, Jason Miyares continues to let Donald Trump do what he wants. Virginia is ready for something different. And again, I think there's going to be a loud message that's sent next week that we are a place that Donald Trump cannot win. He was not successful in 16, 20, or 24. And as we look at moving ahead, this is another sort of chance for us to send a resounding signal that we are better than what we've seen over these last 9 or 10 months in particular, and that we can be the light in the darkness for folks as we head into 2026.
On that point, some 850,000 Virginians receive SNAP benefits. And as I said earlier, the AGs in Massachusetts, California, Arizona, Minnesota, and others are participating in that lawsuit. You talk about if you win, becoming the first African-American attorney general in Virginia. You've got African-Americans who are attorney generals in Nevada, in Illinois, in Minnesota, in Massachusetts, in several states. And so that is a different state of mind. And again, having someone in that position using the power of that office to sue the federal government really is important.
Well, look, we deserve our fair share. We deserve the money that is supposed to be coming into our state and into our communities. When you think about the missed opportunities that we've had, K-12 funding has been on the chopping block. Funding for law enforcement so that we can keep our communities safe. Things that we hold near and dear have gone unattended to here in Virginia because Jason Miyares is too weak to stand up to Donald Trump. The choice could not be more clear. If you want someone who's going to take orders from Donald Trump, Jason Miyares is your person. But I have laid out this vision for Virginia where we have an attorney general who's going to push back on the excess and the overreach and the chaos, sue to protect our values and our ideals and the things that we hold near and dear to our hearts, and make sure that we're using the office to be responsive to these problems that we're seeing right now caused by the Trump administration. Our regional economies here in this Commonwealth have been destroyed because of the tariffs that Donald Trump levied, which have been declared illegal. Attorneys general sued to stop those policies and had success. But when Virginia has not participated, we don't get to avail ourselves of those protections. That has been devastating for the state, and we have an opportunity to do better on Tuesday, and I'm really excited about it because I do think that people from Northern Virginia down to Hampton Roads out to Southwest are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and this is our moment to shine, and I am confident that we are going to have success on Tuesday, and as we move into 2026, join those lawsuits and get Virginia back on a better course.
We've heard Democrats say that they may very well do redistricting in Virginia. Your thoughts on that? Should they make that move?
Well, look, I think people have been desperate for Democrats to be aggressive, and I think this is some bold leadership by our state leaders in the General Assembly. And I will say that the success of this also hinges on the Attorney General. Today, he issued an opinion basically saying that they couldn't do this, which is patently wrong. And frankly, we know that we can do it. And I'm supportive of the effort that you see Speaker Scott and some others are leading here. And this is really just being responsive to the needs and demands of people in Virginia. And so I am excited about the product of the special session this week, us having success next Tuesday, and then doing it again come January to put this to the voters. Because, again, we want to be aggressive, we want to be responsive, and we want to show people that Virginia means business.
Questions from my panel. Larry, you first.
coming on the show. And voters have to kind of figure out what we're going to do here really soon in a couple of days. And so what is your pitch to them in terms of what you would do day one to differentiate from your opponent?
Well, look, day one, we get to sign on to the lawsuits that other attorneys general, Democratic attorneys general, have put up already over the course of these last 10 months so that we can avail ourselves of those protections. And that's the easy part, right? I get to sign my name on some amicus briefs. But what we really want to do is we really want to lean in. As we have moved around this Commonwealth, folks have continued to talk about how they are struggling from an economic standpoint. These tariffs have really hurt our regional economies here. People are feeling the squeeze, whether it be at the gas pump, at the grocery store, with their rent or their mortgages. The list goes on. And it's exactly why we put out a plan to lower costs here in Virginia, to root out corporate fraud, waste, and abuse, to hold those bad actors accountable who are jacking up prices unnecessarily, to go after the pharmaceutical industry, to lower costs for Virginians, and to make sure that we hold these corporate landlords accountable who are making it unaffordable for people to live. The Attorney General should be the watchdog for the people. Jason would rather stick to Donald Trump and corporations and let them run the show. We want to make this office about the people and do what it should be doing, which is protecting them every single day. That has been our pitch, and that will continue to be what we talk about as we close this race out over 7 days.
Mustafa, your question.
Yeah, well, Jay, good to see you. I'm curious. What's the balance look like between economic growth? You just mentioned economic growth a second ago, and environmental protections. We know our most vulnerable communities often end up on the not so positive end of the stick. How will you approach that?
Well, look, I'm sitting here tonight in Norfolk, Virginia, my hometown, which is a city that is under threat from climate change every single day. And so we have to protect our environment. And we know that oftentimes the people who are most under siege in that space are folks who look like us. And so I don't think that the ideas of holding people accountable and protecting our environment are mutually exclusive. We want to make sure we're holding bad actors accountable, protecting our environment and protecting our natural resources, while also making sure that we are a place where there's economic prosperity and opportunities for people to make a living for themselves. But I will say right now, Donald Trump and Jason Miyares don't care about that. When you have thousands of workers who were fired by DOJ earlier this year illegally, I will say, and folks who are sitting at home right now not getting paid because of this prolonged government shutdown that lays only at the feet of Republicans who control Washington. So, we've got a lot going on here, but I do think that what we have really been focused on is, one, trying to put money back in people's pockets, two, letting folks know that protect you and to make sure that we have your back, and three, that this office really should be dynamic and working for regular folks across this Commonwealth to meet the challenges that they face every single day and not being dictated and run by those who've got the deepest pockets.
Jesse.
So you mentioned that this is an opportunity for Virginia to have a Black attorney general. And I'm just curious how your identity with that and such a big milestone, if successful, would influence maybe some of the stances that you may have to take when it comes to issues with policing in Virginia.
Well, look, I'm really, excited about the opportunity to serve because my family has been here in Virginia for a long time. I mentioned earlier, my sons are fifth generation Norfolkians. My grandparents and parents were civil rights leaders, people who taught me everything that I know about putting community first. My grandfather was a civil rights attorney. My father served in all three branches of government. My mother was a violent crime prosecutor. And we have heard from people, from corner to corner who want safe communities. And so do I, right? I have two young boys. Charles is 3 and Zachary is 15 months old. And that's exactly why we put out a plan a few months ago to keep our communities safe, a comprehensive public safety plan that can get real results, that's made in conjunction and developed with state and local law enforcement leaders, sheriffs, police officers, Commonwealth attorneys, other invested community groups who care about this. And I think we can achieve these goals while also keeping our community safe, cracking down on violent crime and supporting victims, making sure that we get illegal guns off of our streets. I have a track record of doing that as an assistant attorney general, where we put the largest illegal ghost gun manufacturer out of business, and then keeping our kids safe, right, from the threats of abusers and predators and the folks who want to do them harm, and managing those threats that they're facing online too. And so those three key pillars, we're going to put that plan into practice and really meet the challenges that we see here in Virginia, knowing that my job is to enforce the laws and make sure that we keep everybody safe, because that's the most important job of any leader in Virginia, federal, state, local, or anywhere else too.
Last question, Jay. There's somebody sitting here watching this show right now, and they say, you know what? I hear all this stuff. That stuff doesn't matter. I don't think this impacts my life. I don't see how this guy, if he's Attorney General, will play a role in the betterment of my life when it comes to my economy, when it comes to my economics, my health, my job, and my education, my neighborhood. What do you say to that person to get them to cast their vote early between now and November 1st? Then, of course, if not, to vote on Election Day.
That everything that is happening in your life runs through the Attorney General's office, whether it be your pocketbook, your family, your community, your children's school, all of it comes down to this office. We have such an incredible purview and the ability to use this office in an affirmative way. For the last 3.5 years, Jason Miyares has used it to serve Donald Trump, and he's used it to serve his friends with deep pockets who think that they run this Commonwealth. This office belongs to you, and my job is to return it to you and be a watchdog for you. Lowering your costs, making sure you can get prescription drugs at an affordable price, keeping your community safe, cracking down on the drug dealers and folks who do our children harm. This is what this job is about. It all matters. And if we don't have an attorney general to work for you, your attorney general is going to work for Donald Trump. And that has put Virginia in a bad spot. It has put thousands of Virginians at risk of losing their health care. It's put thousands of Virginians out of work. It's unacceptable, and we deserve better. And I hope to do that as the next Attorney General of Virginia. And so I'd ask for everybody's support between now and Saturday when early voting closes. And if you're going to vote on Election Day, please cast your ballot for the Democratic ticket from top to bottom, because we have plans to make your life better, to make sure that we protect you, and to make sure that we help you out in these really, really challenging times.
All right, Jay Jones, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon.
All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to give you an update in the Sonia Massey case. The jury now is deliberating the fate of the white former officer who shot and killed her in Illinois. We'll discuss that next. And also, the MAGA governor of Louisiana is going hard because he wants LSU to put a statue of Charlie Kirk on their campus. These people are sick and demented. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
In the military, I gave orders, and they went a lot further than they do around here. If there's one thing I've learned as a mom and foster parent of more kids than I can count, investing in their future isn't a choice. In Richmond, I'll fight for Stafford's fair share for our schools. Smaller class sizes, better teacher pay, and more vocational training.
I'm Stacey Carroll, and I'll fight to get our kids' future in order.
Nicole Cole knows the cornerstone of a successful life starts here. Virginia Public Schools gave Nicole an excellent education. They helped her become a small business owner, family financial planner, mother, and community leader. Now, after 4 years on the Spotsylvania School Board, Nicole is running for delegate to meet the needs of all students. As our delegate, Nicole will fully fund our schools, raise teacher salaries, and help graduating students stay in our communities. Nicole Cole for delegate. For us, for our future.
As a pastor, I hear a lot about trips to the doctor, bills piling up, jobs being lost. So as your delegate, I went to work writing laws that protect families, helping parents care for their disabled children, capping insulin costs, lowering prescription prices, and investing in our police and schools. I'm Josh Cole, and as your delegate, I'm working to keep us strong and safe.
Hey, I'm Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League, and I'm watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Music, play. folks, we're here in Houston for the George R. Brown Convention Center, covering the Afrotech Conference. And so we're going to be live here tomorrow as well as Thursday. So going to have some great conversations taking place here. Folks, let's talk about what's happening in Illinois, where the jury now has the case. The police officer, the former deputy sheriff, who was, of course, indicted for shooting Sonia Massey, Sean Grayson, the former Sangamon County deputy, was charged with a total of 3 counts in connection with Massey's death: first-degree murder, aggravated battery with a firearm, and official misconduct. This is what the Assistant State's Attorney Mary Beth Rogers said. When you threaten to shoot someone in the face, and you do, that's first-degree murder. Also, the prosecutor said that Grayson was an absolute liar when he said that he had no choice to shoot Massey. The assistant state attorney said Grayson kept lying. He lied over and over and over. He lied on the stand when he said he attempted to turn on his body camera. Now, what's crazy is Grayson's partner had his body camera on and made it perfectly clear what happened here. The question now is, will this jury convict this thug former cop? You know, Jesse, it's critically important that this case go forward, and I really hope that this nearly all-white jury does the right thing, because that's exactly what this cop did. He flat out shot Sonia Massey in cold blood, lied to say his life was threatened when there was a significant distance between him and Massey. He lied on the stand saying she threw a pot at him. She never threw the pot at him whatsoever. In fact, she ducked down behind the counter, covered her face with a red oven mitt, and he still shot her 3 times in the face.
Yeah, and at this point, it's a video that unfortunately has gone viral. So we have all seen the same thing. We saw that, his partner, who had his entire body cam going at the time, showed that Massey pulls his gun. Massey points his gun while she's standing up, points at her face to express intent, and tells her that he's going to shoot her in the head. And then I saw the same thing you saw. She ducks down. When she ducks down, he decides that he's going to pull the trigger and take Sonia Massey's life anyway, and almost appeared shocked that his partner had the body camera still going. So I'm not really sure if the jury does not come back in this situation with a conviction. I'm not sure what else there is that the jury would need. And I think we are long overdue for police to be held accountable for these unlawful and extrajudicial killings of Black people.
Larry, this is what the Assistant State Attorney General said. Assistant State Attorney said he wants you to believe that he was scared, but you don't have to believe that because it's not true.
Yeah, Roland, and this is just another tragic example of Black people, losing their lives at the hands of law enforcement. And I'm hoping, like we're talking about this evening, and my colleagues have already suggested, I'm hoping they hold this officer accountable, because we've seen these tragic stories play out over and over and over again for years as it relates to interactions between Black people and law enforcement. And so the jury has an opportunity to send a message that this won't be tolerated. And particularly, Roland, as we are seeing the United States become, even more of a totalitarian country in terms of the police buildup to the ICE and other, entities, we're likely to see more interactions like this, unfortunately, end in tragic death. So it is, once again, is an opportunity for the jury to send a message to law enforcement that you can't lie and that the lives of Black people do matter.
Mustafa, Sean Grayson's attorney, Daniel Fultz, actually said this. He said that when Sonia Massey said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," Grayson believed that it was a threat.
It'd be a threat to a demon. It'd be a threat to someone who has no value for our lives. It might be a threat to those who don't embrace humanity. There's the quote that says, the dead cannot cry out for justice, only the living can do that. This jury now has the opportunity to make sure that those of us who are still here are pushing for justice. Sonia Massey didn't deserve to die. Sonia Massey's life mattered, as Larry just shared, and she should still be alive. But she's not, because someone made a choice in that moment to take her life because she wasn't valuable. Because a man who was well over 6 foot saw a small lady and decided to take her life. He decided a Black woman that he had the right to take her life. I've worked with all kinds of law enforcement folks. Folks know the proper protocols when they follow them. They know the right things to do. They know who's a threat and who isn't a threat. So it is time for us to make sure that the dead now receive justice.
Well, when she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, guess what? She was talking to an evil devil. Unfortunately, that cost her life. So we'll give you an update of what happens. All right, y'all, let's talk about Louisiana. These right-wing people, when you talk about, they claim to be Christian, but they sure love deities, and they're trying to deify Charlie Kirk, who was shot and killed on a Utah campus. The governor of Louisiana is literally challenging the state's flagship university, Louisiana State University, to honor Charlie Kirk with a massive statue, calling it a move to defend free speech on campus. Listen to this fool.
Hey everyone, Governor Jeff Landry here tonight, wanting to thank the entire Turning Point family, because tonight, unbelievable, over 1,500 people came to listen to Turning Point USA. Thank you, big shout out to LSU Turning Point. And so we're here on campus next to Mike the Tiger, and we're gonna put a challenge out to the LSU Board of Supervisors to find a place to put a statue of Charlie Kirk to defend the freedom of speech on college campuses. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if we can be the first campus to do it.
What an absolute dumbass. Now, that followed a Turning Point USA event where some 1,500 people turned out. That's the group that Charlie Kirk co-founded. How about this, Larry? If you want to defend free speech, how about you put up a massive statue of the First Amendment?
Yeah, Roland, this is, I feel like America is like repeat and rinse in terms of how they try to reshape narratives regarding individuals or politicians in terms of their views. Why, LSU, Louisiana, that state and the governor serves a significant number of Black people. He was not fighting for the freedom of speech of Black people. I haven't heard I've seen one speech he ever gave when he talked about the importance of defending the free speech of Black people. In fact, he consistently attacked Dr. Martin Luther King, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and one of the finest Americans that ever walked this country. So the idea that you want to give the same individual, at a public institution where he disparaged Black women, particularly, and other racial groups on a consistent basis, that's not consistent with the kind of morals and values I'm quite sure the state of Louisiana, America in general, is supposed to believe in. So once again, this idea that they want to put a statue on his campus is completely ridiculous and really ignores the concerns of the large number of Black people who live in the state.
Mustafa, Charlie Kirk had nothing to do with Louisiana, wasn't from Louisiana, and is not worthy of a statue on Louisiana's flagship campus. These right-wing MAGA people are absolutely insane.
Well, they definitely short a full deck. It's interesting. You got folks like Mahalia Jackson. You got folks like Louis Armstrong. You got folks like Lil Wayne or Big Frida. I can name a whole bunch of folks from Louisiana who should have a statue on that campus. But, you know, it really goes down to this. Doesn't matter if you're black or white or brown or indigenous, you know, we should have statues for individuals who actually help to uplift, who help to heal, who help to be able to move forward in a positive direction. And that should be the criteria that we use when we're making decisions about who we want to actually honor through statues. But we should also be really mindful of what the Bible tells us about graven images. So when some of these folks begin to move forward and say some of these things that they do, I think they don't actually read the Bible that they say that they prescribe to.
Jesse, him saying, let's become the first. I mean, these people are nuts. They literally want to turn Charlie Kirk into the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I'm sorry, that it's more like a 2.0 of the Confederate statues. That's what this whole deal is about. Because we know what Charlie Kirk said. We know who he attacked. We know who he denigrated. And he is not deserving of a statue on a college campus.
Well, that's the first thing that I thought of. I think sometimes statues aren't necessarily erected to honor someone. They're erected to remind everybody else of what the power position is going to be. And I think with this movement to kind of canonize Charlie Kirk, there is an attempt to try to chill the prosperity, the growth, the progress of the Black community, of minority communities, and remind us of what our place is allegedly supposed to be. I find it interesting that Black people really had nothing to do. As a matter of fact, most people in my circle didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was until the news story broke. But somehow we were blamed. I remember the HBCUs were shut down because there were threats made upon our lives when we weren't in Utah, we weren't at the Turning Point rally. And so I think the forced use of these images on us is an attempt by the system to remind us of who they think we are supposed to be.
Absolutely. So, listen, folks in Louisiana, Black folks in Louisiana, tell Governor Jeff Landry hell no to this idea. All right, y'all, got to go to break. We come back. Man, we got... If y'all want to know how stupid MAGA is, clearly none of these people have ever read a book. I mean, never, ever in their life. They are mad at some comments made by the father of Zoran Mamdani, where he's historically accurate about how white Americans treated Native Americans and how Hitler studied Jim Crow to deal with Jews in Germany. Historian Dr. Gerald Horn will join us next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to give via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here, bottom left-hand corner. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo's RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003-7-0196. Back in a moment.
This week on the other side of change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Latasha from the A.
And you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're here at the George R. Brown Convention Center at the Afro Tech Conference. Y'all, for the last couple of days, I have literally seen some of the dumbest people in my life. You have had these right-wingers, these MAGA people, attacking the father of New York City mayoral candidate, Zoran Mamdani. Now, Mahmoud Mamdani is an author and a Columbia University Herbert Lehman professor. In 2022, at a New York literary festival, he said this.
In my view, America is the genesis of what we call settler colonialism. And the American model was exported all around the world. In America, you have two kinds of minorities that have run the course of the history of the modern American state: the American Indian and the African American. Each has a different significance for our contemporary era. The American Indians were the people on that land when the settlers conquered it. First, they tried to eliminate as many Indians as possible. This was the first recorded genocide in modern history. Then, with the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories. For the Nazis, this was the inspiration. Hitler realized two things. One, that genocide was doable. It is possible to do genocide. That's what Hitler realized. Second thing Hitler realized is that you don't have to have a common citizenship. You can differentiate between people. The Nuremberg laws were patterned after American laws. Anyway, the US put Indians in reservations. The US invented the model, what we call today the two-state solution. The American state, and alongside it, several protectorates with degrees of autonomy, but no independence. It has had its own effect, and we will realize the effect if we contrast it with what happened to the African Americans. Because the African Americans were not put in a separate state. The African Americans were part of the one-state solution. They were oppressed terribly within a single state. But the thing is that the American Indians, by being put in separate states, were perpetually fragmented, isolated. Up to today, the African Americans, horribly oppressed, but had the possibility of building alliances with other oppressed peoples. So we have a history of the same hundreds of years which have brought us to the point where we are with Black Lives Matter, which are at the forefront of progressive struggles in the US, while the American Indians remain isolated and fragmented. The two-state solution was taken around the world. The latest place is Israel, of course.
All right, folks, joining me now from Houston, I'm also here as well, is Dr. Gerald Horne. He is the John J. and Rebecca Moore Chair of History and African American Studies at the University of Houston. He's the author of countless books. We talked about many of those books. Of course, the one book that we really have talked about is The Counter-Revolution of 1836, Texas Slavery and Jim Crow. And first of all, and this is really important for where we are right now, y'all. Again, the Texas slavery and Jim Crow and the roots of American fascism. Gerald, always glad to have you here. He also, of course, is the counter-revolution of 1776, slave resistance, and the origins of the United States of America. Here's what's crazy, Gerald. I mean, these MAGA people have been losing their mind. They have been trashing this man. Oh, he hates America. He's lying. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'm sitting there going, are y'all really that dumb? Literally everything he said happened.
Well, I think what this episode reveals is that truth has a progressive bias. You are correct. Professor Mamdani was on the money. That is to say that this is a settler colonial project. 400 years ago, there were hardly any Europeans living in Texas, and now it has a Euro-American majority. You mentioned my book on Texas. If you go to the end of the introduction and look at one of the footnotes, you'll find a lengthy list of indigenous Texans, Native Americans, Indians, who no longer exist. They were liquidated. And with regard to that point, it's important to point out that the settlers organized militias in order to liquidate the indigenous population, and they oftentimes worked in conjunction with the U.S. military, although they oftentimes thought that the U.S. military was too soft when it came to liquidating the indigenous. And I'm sure your audience is familiar with African American history, familiar with how slavery for hundreds of years was followed by Jim Crow, and that Jim Crow began to crumble approximately 70 years ago, not least because of assistance from the international community. That is to say, the fact that African and Caribbean nations were soaring to independence post-1945, and the United States found it difficult to win hearts and minds amongst these resource-rich nations as long as Black people in this country were treated so atrociously. So that created a dynamic that led to the agonizing and reluctant retreat of Jim Crow, although we all know that in order to desegregate, for example, the high schools in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957, President Eisenhower had to send in federal troops to keep young Black students from being torn from limb by those who objected to their presence. And the same thing happened when Ole Miss, University of Mississippi in Oxford, was desegregated in 1962 per the peerage of one lone Black student, speaking of James Meredith. And to suggest that it was not sectional or regional, recall the Boston busing crisis of the 1970s, when once again, young Black students were trying to desegregate public schools in Boston and were assaulted repeatedly by Euro-Americans who objected to their presence. So I'm scratching my head and trying to figure out what was precisely the objection to what Professor Mamdani said, or is it that those who objected are objecting to reality and to truth?
Not only that, it is a known fact that Hitler sent his emissaries to the United States to study American Jim Crow, to study their treatment of African Americans, the abuse of African Americans, to degrade them. They literally took back the idea, segregated busing, we can use that. They came here and studied, went around America and said, we like that, and we like that. And so when you talk about the Nuremberg laws, we talk about, they literally modeled after the United States Jim Crow. These white MAGA folk, this is why they want to ban books. This is why they want to get rid of this stuff, because they do not want another generation of Americans, white Americans, to know the history of this country, not his story, the actual history.
Well, it's not only the Nazis who studied the notorious example of Jim Crow in the United States of America. You may be familiar with my book, White Supremacy Confronted, which deals with the relationship between apartheid South Africa and racist Rhodesians, now Zimbabwe, in the pre-independence era. That is to say that you had U.S. foundations who actually counseled the apartheid rulers with regard to how to manufacture that hateful, spiteful, oppressive system known as apartheid. And in fact, it was their counsel that led to the rationale for apartheid, which was that there were poor Europeans, so-called Afrikaners, in South Africa, and there was a fear that they would align with the African majority on a class basis. So when apartheid was implanted in 1948, it was implanted in no small measure to uplift the living standards of the European minority, particularly the European minority within the working class and within the poor, so that they would have no incentive to align with the Black majority. And that cruel remedy, so-called, would have worked but for the massive international offensive against apartheid, which the African National Congress and their allies helped to organize. And finally, in the spring of 1994, as you well know, there were the first democratic elections in South Africa, though the Europeans had landed on that continent in 1652. So once again, I'm curious as to what the objections are to Professor Mamdani's words. And by the way, you might recall that he has extensive experience in South Africa as well. He taught at the University of Cape Town, and in fact, the incoming mayor, we imagine, speaking of his son, Z. Kwame Mamdani, that is to say he carries the middle name of the late, great Kwame Nkrumah of Pan-Africanist fame in Ghana. Mr. Mamdani, the latter, actually matriculated and studied and spent a good deal of his youth in South Africa, which I'm afraid to say probably well prepared him for the white supremacy of New York City.
Well, it is abundantly clear the reason they are objecting because they do not like facts. What they want to do is have this ahistorical view. Donald Trump is already setting that up next year for the United States celebrating its 250th anniversary. They want to completely whitewash the history. They don't want any conversation about the evils that took place. They want to frame America as the great oasis of love and peace and say, well, no, don't bring up that stuff because those are just small things. That stuff doesn't matter. They do not want to deal with the actual real history of this country from the beginning.
To be sure. And particularly, they do not want to deal with Black history because Black history, by its very nature, contradicts the uplifting, soaring narrative that Mr. Trump would like to project of the United States creation being a great leap forward for humanity. How can one make that statement when at the founding, that is to say in 1776 to the end of the 18th century, there were thousands of enslaved Africans. On the verge of the U.S. Civil War in 1861, there were millions. If this was an abolitionist project, as some would lead us to believe, I'd hate to see a pro-slavery project. Not only that, but the investment in the bodies of enslaved Africans, your ancestors and mine, that was the most lucrative investment in the United States of America, more valuable than banking capital, more valuable than the railways. Indeed, the African slave trade, which deposited our ancestors on these shores, was one of the most lucrative enterprises known to humankind. You can invest $1 and receive $1,700 in return. There are those today who would sell their firstborn for 1,700% profit, not to mention some African that they did not know. Not only that, but this wildly lucrative African slave trade served as the basis for the development of an advanced modern society, not only in the United States, but in Great Britain, in a good deal of Western Europe, which is one of the reasons why just last month in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the African Union and the Caribbean community, CARICOM, led by Jamaica, Barbados, etc., met face-to-face, heads of state and government, with reparations being the top item on the agenda. As the late, great Walter Rodney, the Guyanese historian, put it in his famous book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, that says it all. That is to say, as Europe, that is to say, Western Europe, soared to prominence on the backs and bodies of our ancestors, the African continent was driven into the dust. Professor Mamdani knows it. Mr. Trump, if he ever attended class, should know it. And that is the truth that they want to keep away from our youth.
Questions from my panel. Jesse, you're first.
Well, I definitely appreciate this information. I think also that one of the things that I'm seeing this administration is trying to do, in addition to erasing the history, is it seems like this administration is attempting to not only devalue us, but they're also trying to stop future generations from even ever reconsidering this. Burning textbooks, getting rid of curriculums. This will take decades to repair for those people who don't have a repository. I'm wondering, what advice do you have for our community in particular to overcome what we know is going to be an onslaught on our history and our culture?
Well, I think the potential remedies are obvious. Obviously, we need to fight back, but I think one of the arrows in our quiver that has been lost in recent years has been the internationalizing of our struggle. It was Pan-Africanism, spearheaded by the late, great W.E.B. Du Bois, which linked our struggle to struggles in the Caribbean and struggles in Africa. I was very curious to note that at the aforementioned summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, there were less than a handful of Black Americans who were participating at this summit that in many ways was deciding and determining our fate as regards reparations. But not only internationalizing the struggle, there are certain home remedies we can take, not only, of course, making sure that our youth are acquainted with various websites and have various books in their own personal library, but organizing Saturday schools. You know that there are certain immigrant groups who send their children to public schools where they receive a U.S.-determined or locally determined curriculum, but on Saturday they learn about, for example, Korean history or Chinese history, et cetera. We need to adopt that kind of model. That is to say, a model that in some ways has its roots in Dixie during the bad old days of Jim Crow, when we were struggling against segregated schools and struggling against inadequately prepared desegregated schools. That is to say, we organized what were called freedom schools. And freedom schools are on the agenda for today, and that is certainly a path we should be pursuing.
Larry.
Yes, Professor, I'm curious your thoughts about what we've seen since January in particular, the dramatic, increase in the Black unemployment rate, and how it intersects with the militarization of the United States. How those two things intersect, and what does that mean for the future of this country, particularly as it relates to Black people?
Well, you mentioned the militarization of this country, if I heard you correctly. And I take it you're making reference to the dispatching of National Guard forces to Chicago. I think that the Chicago community is acquitting themselves well and confronting these jackbooted thugs. And I would imagine that given the offensive by Black Chicago in particular, that they will be retreating rather shortly, speaking of the National Guard. But I take it you're also referring to the tax dollars that are being expended in the Caribbean as we speak. Just today, another boat of fishermen were blown out of the water by the U.S. authorities. The U.S. authorities have sent nuclear submarines to the shores of Venezuela because, as Mr. Trump has made clear, he wants to overthrow the Maduro regime so that he can seize some of the most valuable oil reserves on planet Earth. But keep in mind that, A, these people who are being blown out of the water, oftentimes they're Black people from Trinidad and Tobago, which is only 7 miles as the crow flies from Venezuela. And likewise, what Mr. Trump is doing is contravening international law. It is as if he had sent troops into Chicago who would approach a certain alleged drug dealer, and rather than detaining that potential drug dealer or alleged drug dealer and or arresting him, that drug dealer or alleged drug dealer would be shot through the head. What I'm also suggesting, and what you should infer, is that if international law can be contravened off the shores of Trinidad and Tobago and off the shores of Venezuela, it provides a precedent for domestic law to be contravened in the United States of America. That hypothetical I just floated about coming up to a drug dealer and shooting that alleged drug dealer through the head, we know that that has happened in the past, and certainly if present presidents continue, it will become the norm in the future.
Mustafa.
Professor, if I could build on what you just shared, I'm curious your thoughts. I've heard this moment described as Jim Crow 2.0. I've heard it, and I have described it as very apartheid-esque. With all the years that you've been looking at these issues and teaching on these issues, how do you frame this particular moment?
I frame this particular moment this way. I think we're in the midst of a counter-revolutionary moment, not unlike what followed the end of the Civil War, referring to Reconstruction, where there was democratic promise. Recall that there were Black men in particular who are elected to the highest offices in the land, including members of Congress. But there was a backlash. There was a resurgence of racist terror spearheaded by the Ku Klux Klan, which led to the promise of Reconstruction being drowned in blood. I think that we're experiencing a similar moment today. And as Mr. Martin noted in his introduction, I wrote a book some years ago called The Counter-Revolution of 1776. And in other words, I've maintained that the creation of the United States itself was a counter-revolutionary moment because, as I point out, London, the colonial power, seemed to be moving towards abolition of slavery, which would have jeopardized the fortunes of slave owners like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Patrick Henry, et al. And rather than run that risk, they revolted and set up an independent state, which, as noted, expanded exponentially the number of enslaved Africans from 1776 to 1861. So only those who have not been paying attention, only the naive, will be surprised at what we're experiencing today.
Well, we actually are dealing with this here, and one of the things they desperately want to do is they do not want folk to have an understanding of real history, American history. That's what we're seeing right here. Dr. Gerald Horne, always glad to have you on the show. Folks, just Google it. He got way too many books. He got books on boxing, jazz, history, you name it. We've talked about a lot of his books. Get them all. Because it is important reading, because we have too many people right now who do not know American history. And Gerald, the key is when we know history, we're able to push back against these lies. And I worked at CNN. I've been on these other networks, and too many of these people, they don't know a damn thing about history, especially Black history. And so they allow these lies to simply be told. And all what Mom Donnie did was tell the real story of America, and they just simply don't like it.
Well, the truth hurts. I'm sure you remember that phrase. And once again, I think we should reiterate what Professor Mamdani was saying, because it's quite bone-chilling. That is to say, the Nazis tried to learn the lessons of Jim Crow. The crafters of apartheid tried to learn the lessons of Jim Crow. Not only that, but as I noted in my aforementioned book, the U.S., as you may recall, was a major supporter of apartheid. Recall that Ronald Wilson Reagan himself in the 1980s, when he was seeking to veto the Comprehensive Anti-Apartheid Act, which was spearheaded by the Congressional Black Caucus, including the late Ronald V. Dellums of Oakland, Berkeley, the late John Conyers of Detroit, he argued falsely, not unlike Mr. Trump argues falsely today, that actually the apartheid rulers and crafters were on the same side of the United States during World War II, which is absolutely false. Actually, the apartheid rulers were pro-Nazi during World War II. They were pro-Berlin during World War II. And this is an elemental truth. It's an elemental fact. It's the sort of fact and truth that Mr. Mamdani Sr. was espousing, and it's the kind of elemental truth and fact that Mr. Trump of the White House would like to keep away from the eyes and ears of our youth in particular.
Dr. Gerald Horne, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Good luck to you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, folks. We come back our marketplace segment with another one of our shop, blackstartnetwork.com, Black-owned businesses. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Start Network, live from the George R. Brown Convention Center here in Houston. where the Afrotech Conference is taking place this week. Back in a moment.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Next on The Black Table with me, Craig Calkin. Why the America we live in today is not what the founders intended or what they outlined in the Declaration of Independence and even the Constitution. Professor and author Kermit Roosevelt will join us to talk about his book, The Nation That Never Was. How history was misinterpreted, the intent and realities of America's beginnings, and missed a much better story in the process.
So if you have to pick some group to marginalize, I think it should be the people who are against equality.
That's next on The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, and higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change only on the Black Star Network.
How you doing? My name is Mark Curry, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Deep into it, like pasteurized milk without the 2%. We getting deep. You want to turn that shit off? We're doing an interview, motherfucker.
All right, folks, we all travel and we want to be comfortable. Well, as a black-owned brand, redefining being cozy and comfortable when you are traveling. E-Marie delivers everyday luxury, whether you're at home or on the go. We're joined right now by Eula Smith, owner and operator of E-Marie Travel, joining us from Los Angeles. Eula, glad to have you here. And so,
Hi.
all right.
How are you, Roland?
Talk about these stylish blankets and hoodies you have.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm a huge fan of yours, so thank you for the great work you're doing for our community. Really appreciate it. So I created a travel blanket because I am someone who travels almost every single month from Los Angeles to New York, overseas, just all over. And I needed something that was functional. I was carrying at the time this huge cashmere blanket that was like a $400 blanket. And it was like every time I got off the plane, I had to dry clean it. So I thought I needed to create something that I could use on a plane and also when I get off the plane. So I created the E. Travel Wrap. And it's a 4-in-1. It can be used as a blanket, a pillow, a shawl, and a scarf. And we were on Oprah's favorite list 3 years in a row with it. So we're very excited about it. And I think the best part about our blanket is that it's washable. People seem to love that.
All right, so look, there's a lot of blankets out there, a lot of things out there, but what caused this? And what happened? And were you traveling and you were like, man, this blanket sucks?
Well, you look at the ones in the airport and they're so flimsy. They're not warm. They're not comfortable. And I just wanted something that was very luxe. I wanted to feel luxe like it was cashmere, but not cashmere because I wanted to be able to wash it. So what we call it our faux cashmere blanket because it looks like cashmere and it feels like cashmere and it's extremely warm. So I think people just love it. And it comes in its own little pouch. So you can put it in this pouch, throw it in your handbag, throw it in your tote, or tie it on your suitcase. So it's a bag that you don't have to ever leave home without.
All right. Now, when we talk about traveling, size, weight matters because, listen, you're not trying to have a whole bunch of bulky stuff. And so how did you factor that in?
Because I travel myself, so I'm good about carrying on. I can do a carry-on and a tote for a 2-week trip, so I know how to pack. So I needed something that was going to be able to go everywhere with me without having to be an extra piece. So it goes into a little pouch, and it ties on your suitcase, or it fits right in your tote or your handbag. So it's so easy. You never have to worry about trying to check it or having too much stuff with you. It's just a perfect item to go anywhere you go. And I actually keep one in my office and I keep one in my car because I live in LA and it could be 80 degrees in the afternoon and the sun goes down at 60 degrees. So I always have one on me, always.
Oh, hell yeah. That is absolutely LA. So we got the blanket, but we also have the eye mask. And I'm telling you right now, I'm a huge believer in the eye mask because you always got that dumbass who refuses to pull a window shade down.
Right,
and it's like 7 o'clock in the morning and a bright ass sun is coming in.
Exactly. And our mask is very comfortable. It comes in the rib. So we have 2 different styles. One is a rib blanket that comes with the eye mask, and the other one's just a solid bag that does not come with an eye mask. So if you're someone who likes an eye mask, you want to buy the rib one.
All right, questions for the panel. Mustafa, go.
Yeah, Ms. Smith, I'm curious, what are the materials for the blanket and for the eye mask? Because sustainable products are incredibly important in making sure that they're healthy and safe.
Yes, absolutely. It's cotton with viscose in it, so it's washable. And the thing about our blanket is that it keeps its volume, its weight. So when you wash it, it comes right out of the wash and dry. It comes right out of the dryer, extremely fluffy still, extremely soft and cozy.
Larry.
Yeah, I'm curious if how way your business has been impacted by the tariffs the last couple of months.
Well, fortunately, our blanket is a replenishment item. So therefore, we keep this blanket in stock year round because it has such a high demand. So our warehouse has a nice amount of stock right now. So we haven't had to reorder because we always plan for like a 6-month stock. Our stock will probably dwindle into December when we'll have to worry about tariffs. And hopefully by then, we'll be back on track.
Jesse.
Do you have any plans to expand kind of the inventory of what you have for travel gear?
Yeah, in fact, if you go on our website, we also have these really yummy, comfortable hoodies that are made in the same fabric. It's called our travel hoodie. And we just launched our whole new line of T-shirts and actually loungewear, which is more like a fleece for travel. And we launched it in August, and we've had such a huge response to it that it will be coming out next month in new colors. So we're excited about the growth of the brand.
So, folks, we want y'all to go to shopblackstarnetwork.com to get these products from E. Marie. Again, E. Marie Travel. show the website. Again, you go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Remember, when you support these Black-owned businesses, you're also supporting this Black-owned business, Roland Martin Unfiltered, and the Black Star Network. And that's why all this is important. And so that's why we do this. That's why we have partnered to do this, because this provides an opportunity for these Black-owned businesses and to be able to get the word out about their products. The reality is marketing is very expensive, and so being able to take advantage of this is really important. And so that's really matters. And so again, y'all, listen, you got birthdays coming up. Hint, hint. Let's see, mine is in 17 days, so I'm just saying. But you also, of course, you got Christmas going as well, and so all that's happening. And so, folks, again, if you want to get one of these blankets, get the eye mask, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Just simply put in the search box E-Marie Travel. E-Marie Travel, you see the products right there. And let's make this happen. And you can support Eula and all the other Black-owned companies that are on shopblackstarnetwork.com. Eula, how many colors of the blankets do you have, and what are the colors?
It comes in 9 colors. We have black, we have light gray, dark gray, olive, dark olive, a beautiful, beautiful Bordeaux, which is the color of the season. And we have a what we call goldenrod, which is beautiful goldenrod color, and oatmeal, which is light, very light, creamy. And I will just say, Roland, what you're doing for Black-owned businesses is so fabulous, because we really need to support Black-owned businesses. There's so many talented people out there in our community doing great things, from clothing to jewelry to candles to even wine. And we need to get behind these amazing, amazing designers and owners of companies. And thank you for the platform. And I hope so many other people will be able to get on your show as well.
We have a lot of those on the site. We're adding more products as well. And I'm going to have to get that Bordeaux, because I'm a Texas A&M graduate, so maroon is our color. So that would have went perfect with the maroon cowboy hat I was rocking today flying from D.C. to Houston.
It's been perfect. And you know, it's our #1 selling color. It has been. It's just crazy. It's a beautiful, so rich.
All right, then. Well, Eula, we appreciate it, folks. It is E-Marie Travel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, and nice talking to all the guys as well. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me shout out. Let me thank Jesse. Let me thank Larry. Let me thank Mustafa for being on today's panel. Thank you so very much. Folks, as I said, we are here at the Afrotech Conference in Houston. We're going to be broadcasting from here tomorrow and Thursday. And so we really are excited being here. We're going to have a lot of interviews. We're going to be walking the floor. Where they have all of the vendors as well as the products. And so we're going to be talking about all things tech and African Americans over the next couple of days. And so you want to tune in right here to Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. We'll also be streaming live several of the panels from the main stage as well. And so what you want to do is you want to be sure to check your notifications on YouTube. So when we go live, you get your notifications. So we really look forward to that. And so, again, glad to be here partnering with Afrotech and Blavity at the Afrotech Conference in Houston. Folks, that's it. Don't forget, if you want to support the work that we do, be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Join the Bring the Funk fan club. The goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each a year. It's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. That means you're going to be supporting this show and all the shows on the Black Star Network. Our goal is to raise $1 million between now and the end of the year for the new shows that we are launching. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. We do not have our Cash App products anymore, our Cash App names. Use the Stripe QR code for Cash App. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money order. Make it payable to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2037-0196. Be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. And, of course, we also want you to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag. And so we want to get our shirts and hats, T-shirts, mugs, all that good stuff. Go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, shopblackstarnetwork.com. And of course, if you want to support those black-owned businesses, as I said, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com as well. And don't forget to support and download the app Fanbase. Download the app Fanbase. Okay, y'all need to switch it. No, show shopblackstarnetwork.com for the black-owned products. So again, all those products you see on my desk there in our DC. We got black crossword puzzles. We got backpacks. We got skincare. We got relishes. All sort of products. All those products you see right there are available on shopblackstarnetwork.com. And as I said, download the app Fanbase. It is now up to number 19 on the Apple App Store. So, folks, let's keep taking it higher. Let's download Fanbase. Let's blow this thing up. A social media platform owned by African Americans, investors. And this is a way for us to be able to participate in this tech economy, and more importantly, to protect ourselves, be able to get our word out by having apps that the billionaires on the right wing do not control. If you want to invest in Fanbase, they've raised some $13.4 million for a $17 million Series A raise. If you want to invest, go to startengine.com/fanbase, startengine.com/fanbase. All right, folks, that's it from Houston. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Again, we're going to be live streaming a number of the sessions throughout the day. And we'll be carrying a lot of those interviews we'll be shooting live on the show tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, if you missed the show, watch the restream. You can go to our YouTube channel as well. And be sure to share our videos as well because, again, the more views we get there, that drives the revenue for the show as well. So, folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, live from Houston at the Afro Tech Conference. Holla!